Well, Andrew Tate, the top G. Top G is being interviewed by Ahmad Mahmoud on his show. And he said something I thought was really interesting.
I am keeping him alive forever by working so hard.
That I wanted to talk about. I thought it was really interesting because I just did a couple of weeks back, I did a video on Andrew Tate's thoughts on fatherhood and how I disagreed with his thoughts on being a father and why I disagreed biblically on his thoughts on being a father. But he said something about his father and his father's funeral and the reason why he didn't go to his father's funeral. And I thought it was very profound, the things that he had to say about that. I think that what he had to say is somewhat lined up with what Scripture has to say about your father and manhood and things like that. Very interesting. Let me go to it, and then I'll make a comment about it. And I want to go to 1 Samuel chapter 17 on what I'm thinking here.
So I had to make a decision. And I decided that as the oldest man in the family, it's more important that I achieve financial stability for all of us than to go and pay respects to my father and his funeral, because I paid respect to him every single day of his life. And I pay respect to his memory every single day now. And I pay respect to him by being monumentally successful. The reason my father is talked about and discussed at length is because of the absolutely amazing son I've become. Yeah. I am keeping him alive forever by working so hard, by becoming so unique and individual and fantastic and humble. The world asks me about my upbringings, and then my father's memory is kept alive.
So Top G says that his father's memory is kept alive because of him and what he does. When people look at him, they ask about who is this man's father, because of who he is and what he's accomplished, that his father lives on through him. And so we're talking about patriarchy and that kind of stuff. I thought, well, that is a very profound thought, that if you are someone who's actually doing something with their life, you're not in your mom's basement playing video games, doing nothing with the time that God has given you on this earth, that your father lives on through you. That's a cool thought. Now, what it made me think of is I was in church a couple of weeks ago, and I actually wasn't preaching. I was actually got to sit and listen to the pastor, which was nice for a change, taking a break here from preaching. And so I'm in church, and we're going through 1 Samuel chapter 18. And as the pastor was talking about 1 Samuel chapter 18, I read before in 1 Samuel 17. Now, 1 Samuel 17 is where the famous, one of the most masculine stories in all of Scripture. You know the story, David and Goliath. And so at the end of it, David kills Goliath, chops off his head, takes his head to Saul. It says in verse 57 that when David goes to Saul, he's still holding the Philistine's head. Now, how is that for masculinity? Do you think you'd see a man of God today in a church holding the head of an enemy, like up, no, you wouldn't. The Nancy boys that we have in most evangelical churches would not be doing that. You'd be more likely to see the guy that's very effeminate up in the choir dancing around,
How you gonna believe in the Lord? You're a sis. And you marching in all like this here.
Than a David in there. Anyway, so what I wanted to crawl out was in 1 Samuel 17:58, Saul says to David, "Whose son are you, young man?" Saul said. And David said, "I am the son of your servant Jesse of Bethlehem." Now, isn't that profound, right? That Saul, after all this stuff goes on, David proves himself to be someone who is kicking tail and taking names. And he comes in holding the head of the Philistines, Goliath. And Saul says, "Whose son are you?" Wow. What a legacy. What a legacy to have. I think Top G, Cobra Tate, I think he's correct on his assessment of this. I don't know where he got this wisdom, but this is ancient wisdom. This is ancient wisdom that we can see right in the Scripture. King Saul says, "Whose son are you, David?" And Jesse lives on through his son, who is kicking tail and taking names. Boy, what a good thought. Give me a comment, like, subscribe. I need some comments about this. What do you guys think of this? The patriarchs, that you will live on through your son or sons. I've got 3. Boy, I hope every one of them is just a tail kicker, you know? And people say, but whose son were you? And yeah, wow, isn't that great? Anyway, we can be sons of the Most High, though. We can be sons. We can be children of God when we come to know Christ. And Christ is winning. He is building his church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. Until next time, this is the Postmillennial Man.